After uploading my last two videos and reading everyone's comments, I have gathered that the main reasons why some people think Berserk is better off without WYALD is because he supposedly serves no purpose to the plot, and that he takes away the shock factor from the Eclipse. To all that I have to say, I completely disagree. In this final video regarding WYALD, I will specify the symbolism and the meaning of this fight, how it relates to Guts, exactly why this fight is so important in terms of how it shows Guts' level, and how it actually adds insight to the Eclipse. Something which admittedly doesn't add any value, but still worth mentioning, is the way Wyalds Hypocrisy is so cleverly shown. We see this immediately after he rises up again for a second time. When he lies on the ground after being defeated by Guts, he says, "I don't want to die," and he keeps saying this like a child complaining to an adult. But wait, isn't he being hypocritical here? As mentioned in my earlier video, WYALD constantly declared his own men about how one shouldn't fear death, and that you can't live properly if you don't do so. But here, when the situation is reversed, when he is the one on the verge of death, he does the exact same thing he was telling others not to do. This irony is taken even further when we observe the way WYALD was killed by Zod. When Nosferatu Zod flies down and apprehends WYALD, he whines even more. At one instance, he says, "Wait, stop, you and me are on the same side." Remember who was on the same side as WYALD, and what happened to them? WYALD's true cowardness and hypocrisy is so cleverly and ironically used here, and it relates to my next point regarding his death. Zod actually goes through and finishes him off, and we see the vortex appear from WYALD's lifeless body. Still confused and shocked by what's going on, our characters think his body has disappeared, but no, something is there. They can't believe what's in front of them. The monster's true form turns out to be this old man. The way that WYALD turned out to be an old, weak little man establishes a recurring motif in Berserk, that anyone is capable of being evil. Continuously throughout the story, we see characters who seem innocent or unpeachable at first glance perform the most atrocious and brutal actions imaginable, and this is no different. WYALD was the sick demonic beast with the most twisted motives, but he turned out to be this frail old man, one of the last people we expect him to be, representing that anyone, no matter how they appear, has the capacity to be evil. As for what type of person this old man was in his past, I think it is clear that he was a weak little man who wasted away his whole life. He was most likely an individual who lived a boring, uneventful existence where he never attempted or achieved anything significant, but after becoming an apostle, he abused his newfound powers to actually commit all the inhuman acts of violence and barbarity he was never able to do with his true body. And this ties back to my previous point regarding his cowardness and hypocrisy. After being placed in such a powerless position, perhaps he reverted back to his old ways, and his true cowardly nature revealed itself. It's more than likely that all of his statements regarding fearing death and all his intimidation tactics were all said and done in a way to conceal and hide his true self. WYALD was what Guts originally thought was the fate and death Skull Knight and Zod warned him about earlier on in the story. As mentioned in the previous videos, when WYALD first clashed with Guts, it gave him the same feeling he received when he encountered Zod and Skull Knight. Soon after this, there is a short scene where we see Guts' inner thoughts. I'm sure of it. He's the same. But why? Why do things like that keep appearing to just me and Griffith? It can't. It can't be. When WYALD catches up to Guts, he recalls how Zod mentioned there was a lively one in the band of the Hawk. All of this makes Guts wrongfully believe that WYALD is the fate that Skull Knight and Zod mentioned to him, even though in reality this turned out to be the Eclipse. This in turn represents yet another recurring motif in Berserk, which is for Guts to fight against fate. Countless times throughout the story, Guts pushes through and does things he supposedly can't or isn't supposed to do, and Guts is fully conscious of this in regards to Wyald. During one pivotal moment in the fight, when Guts is on his last legs after being bashed around by Wyald like a toy, his self-doubt kicks in again. Why? When I've chopped him up so much, why is he... Is this impossible? Everyone else at the scene starts to lose hope as well. He tells himself, is this unwinnable? You're gonna die. Through all this, as he hangs on the tree branch, he has a flashback. He remembers a particular moment when he was training in the mountains in front of Erika. Mid-battle flashbacks are something very common in manga and anime. They usually involve the character remembering how they were taught a certain attack or a special move, but this one is different. It just showcases the conversation Guts and Erika had regarding why Guts pushes his body so hard. He tells her that the one who beat him wasn't like this, and that he was something like a monster. When Erika asks Guts whether he is planning on fighting him again, he doesn't give a straightforward answer. She says he shouldn't fight him, and she asks whether he can win. Guts just replies, I can't say. The final panel just shows Erika's face as she asks, which is it? Hey. Now, I may be overthinking this scene too much, and Guts waking up again could just be based on chance, but I believe this particular memory with Erika did cause Guts to regain consciousness. As mentioned earlier, all through Guts' life, he is placed in situations he isn't supposed to survive in, and this is no different, and Guts is fully aware of this in regards to this fight. While it seems very minimal, he uses this small remark made by Erika to fuel himself to get back up and defeat this monster, who as mentioned earlier, he isn't supposed to beat. He fights against his fate one more time, as he has always done throughout his life. Although some readers say that Wyald takes away the shock factor from the Eclipse, I believe the opposite. Wyald's appearance and his battle with Guts makes the Eclipse even more shocking and terrifying. This is because towards the first time reader, Wyald's defeat creates an almost fake climax to the story arc. Guts had just defeated this horror-struck monster, who as mentioned earlier, was something he wrongfully believed to be what Skull Knight and Zod warned him about. They had finally fended off all of the enemies which were on their tail, and they were safely away from the kingdom. At least temporarily, it gives us this calm, undisturbed setting, where it seems like the only issue they have is regarding the unclear future of the band, but all of a sudden, the story takes a complete 180. The eclipse happens, and it provides us with one of the most disturbing and shocking moments in all of manga. Just think back to the first time you read this part of the story. Every single factor of the Wyald fight disfavored Guts, but still, by using every ounce of his mental and physical strength, Guts just somehow defeats this monster. However, not even 5 chapters later, the eclipse takes place, where not just one, not just a few, but a whole army of apostles, similar to Wyald, senselessly attack and massacre our favorite heroes. It's exactly this massive contrast which makes the eclipse so much more vivid, unmanning, and hopeless than it already is. And going further, Wyald's appearance helps the reader make sense as to how Guts was the only one able to survive the eclipse. The victory over Wyald served to be an indicator for just how much more powerful Guts truly was compared to the rest of the Hawk members. Since Guts first joined the band, it was obvious that he was in fact more competent and more forceful than all the other Hawk Knights, but defeating Wyald really dignified that he was on a completely different stratosphere to everyone else in terms of his abilities. This showcase of strength and ability is important towards the story because it gives a much better insight into how Guts was able to survive the horrors of the Eclipse. It proved that Guts was the only person in the group capable of defeating Apostles. In the 97 anime, without Guts' victory over Wyald, it almost makes it seem like Guts just out of nowhere gets this huge power boost, but in the manga, it's made clear as to why Guts was the only person who could fend off and defeat the countless Apostles which were going after him, which is simply because he wasn't an ordinary fighter. He was in fact special, and different from everyone else, as proved by the way he defeated Wyald. So again, Wyald matters because he signifies Guts' fight against fate, the capacity of evil, and because he actually adds insight and more narrative to the Eclipse.